Good afternoon and welcome into a late edition of the Spotlight Omaha podcast, where we take you around the city of Omaha, introduce you to local business owners, influential figures, and people who are making an impact on our community. We are brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing is a locally owned marketing firm who specializes in website design, creating social media ads, and engaging your business online. If you need help with any of that, check out pixelfiremarketing.com today. Joining me inside the Pyramid Contractor studio today, Corwin Keller of Ideal Heating and Air. Corwin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, listen, man, you know me, I'm all about networking and sharing business, but I don't think we're going to need you anytime soon, but based on the fact that it's negative 40 degrees in our studio today. But either way, I appreciate you being here. I want to talk, because we haven't talked to an HVAC person yet for this podcast. We like to be as diverse as possible. Talk to me about the struggles of the Omaha area when it comes to heating and air. We face 100-degree heat. We face negative 40 degrees and everything in between. How does that affect your guys' day-to-day operations at Ideal?
Yeah, a lot of it just comes down to the extremes, right? I mean, we have 4 seasons here, and so our systems are put through a lot of different extremes, whether it's extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme wind, rain, all that stuff. Hail. I mean, we've been getting those crazy storms.
Yeah.
So what it does is it puts us in a position to where we have to react when things break down instead of trying to be proactive. But it also means that we want to talk more about being proactive with your heating and cooling equipment, because that can help prevent the emergency breakdowns when we are in the extreme.
Walk me through that, because a lot of what I've heard you talk about in the past is getting your systems maintained and checked regularly. What does that process look like with Ideal Heating and Cooling, and what exactly do you guys do to make sure that systems are running at peak times during the different months?
Yeah, the biggest thing with maintenance and routine maintenance at that point is your cleanings. Coils get dirty, blower wheels get dirty, ductwork gets dirty. All that stuff, when it gets dirty, it doesn't run as efficiently. So it either costs you more money to operate, or it causes premature breakdowns of motors and air conditioners, compressors, fan motors, that kind of stuff.
When we talk about the boroughs of Omaha, it's all obviously very different. We're talking North Omaha, South Omaha, the Gretna area, Elkhorn. What are some of the different things that you guys see affecting different units in the different parts of town?
Well, the biggest thing is mature tree population. So
good point.
You have probably seen the snow fly in the summer,
Yeah.
as we call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's the cottonwood seeds. Whenever you've got a neighborhood full of cottonwood trees that are mature, that will plug up your air conditioner really fast.
I have no trees in my yard.
Right,
I've got that stuff all over it, by the way.
The flip side of that is no trees at all, right?
Yeah.
In the newer neighborhoods. And then you've got fields around there that are blowing dirt into your air conditioner as well. Same thing, but that's also coming into your house, infiltrating your furnace system inside, which could also make your filters dirtier faster. It could also make your indoor air quality not as good as it could be.
Those things kind of go hand in hand. We're talking about air conditioning in your heater system. If somebody like me is in the process of needing to probably get their system replaced in the next couple of years, but they just recently bought the house, the air conditioner is 20 years old, the furnace is 3 years old, is it necessarily always to replace them at the same time, or sometimes is it a better idea to kind of do them separately?
Right. It's not necessary by any means. We always say it's good because it's an engineered match. So the systems were tested together in a lab.
Sure.
And then you get the results that we were expecting, but it's not required. No, there's a lot of situations where, whether it's affordability or it's timing or somebody selling, and this thing needs to be replaced just by itself, whether it's your air conditioner or your furnace, can easily be done. As long as everything matches up, airflow wise and capacity wise, it'll work.
If there's a time of year that's busier for you, is it the colder months? Is it the warmer months? How does that work?
It's
Is it
definitely the warmer
both?
months.
Oh, okay.
What I've seen in this area is nobody wants to wait for air conditioning, but they'll wait weeks for.
I don't think that is. I don't think that's unique to Nebraska.
No, and it's just it's definitely the summer when we're busier for sure.
We often talk to people in here about what it looks like when you're starting a business versus where you guys are, over a decade down the road. And when we talk about the ability to hire somebody or go out and take something that, listen, let's call it what it is. You feed your family this way, you pay your bills this way. It's your brand. How difficult is it for you now versus 10 years ago to go out and hire somebody, let them put the Ideal logo on their shirt and go to work for you?
Yeah, well, when I first started in business, I was scared to hire people. Because I just you didn't know what to expect. And then I'm thinking, well, how do I train these people to get them to do what I want to do? And along the way, I've studied a lot of leadership, and so I really have a fascination with learning leadership and applying it. And so as I've gotten the need to grow and to bring on more employees, I've really got to apply a lot of those leadership skills. And then it then went to, we needed a system in place for the business that kept everybody on the same page. And right now we're using EOS.
Explain what EOS is to our listeners and how it's kind of affected the way you guys do your business.
Yeah, so EOS is an entrepreneurial operating system, is what it stands for. And really what it does is it teaches us to have a good meeting and a consistent meeting. So that's called the L10 meeting, which is a level 10 meeting. And we started out with a leadership team, and then we move it out to each function of the company. So our company has 5 functions. And so each one of those function leads, they have their own L10s weekly. And then along with that, they help us build a foundation for the business that everybody gets a say in and that everybody buys into. And then we base our hiring and our, what's the word I'm looking for? Our reviews.
Culture?
Our culture. Yeah, culture is a good word too. We base all that on what we built from the EOS Foundation, which is the vision and the traction organizer, from our core values, our niche, our target market, all that stuff. So it's helped us get a better team put together, and it's helped us communicate a lot clearer with each other. So there's less gossip. There's less bickering. It just seems like everybody's working together as a unit.
Less gray area.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about your core focuses because listed on your website, clients first, exceptional service, and reliable. What does reliable mean to you?
Well, reliable means we're going to show up when we say we're going to show up. You know, we've had a couple reviews so far this year that we were out there within 90 minutes of the phone call. Now, that doesn't always happen.
Sure.
I wish it was.
Yeah.
But that to me.
So do most people.
Right. The other thing is if you call in on a Saturday night, you're going to get somebody to answer the phone. You know,
Big deal for you?
Oh, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's funny when I first started, my wife worked for me, and she's probably going to hate
Not anymore, huh?
No, we have since moved her out of the company. She does help a little bit, but we have a special needs daughter at home that she cares for 100% of the time. So that was definitely needed more than helping me out. But I always used to say that I always used to have this pet peeve that, man, if they went to voicemail, they were going to call somebody else. So it was
agree.
Such a huge deal to me that a warm voice answering the phone at all hours was just going to be key to our success.
When you don't end up being in business for 11 years by accident, if you could point at one thing and say, we got over this hurdle and that's why we're still here, what do you think it is?
I would have to say I got over fear.
Okay.
Because I had come from a business that failed before this business.
Sure.
And
that you ran personally, or that you were?
I ran personally.
Okay.
It was me and 2 other partners.
I didn't know that about you.
And so we made a lot of poor decisions, and I played a big part in those decisions just as much as the other partners did. Mm-hmm. But when I started rebuilding with Ideal, I told myself I didn't want to go back to that point because it was complete failure.
Sure.
You know, and I mean, I say failure, but I didn't quit, right?
Yeah. Which is equally as important, by the way.
But the fear held me back for 5 years from being willing to grow.
Sure.
And I eventually stagnated, and I started to get burned out because I was like, I can't make anything happen here. Well, I was afraid. I was afraid to hire people. I was afraid to go out and get new clients because I thought I was going to get too busy.
Afraid to make the same mistake.
Afraid to make the same mistake, you know, and lose it all.
I seen something on air online the other day that said being a business owner and entrepreneur means you have to be comfortable in situations that would kill most people. And it was at a time, and as business owners, we all hit that time of the year where it's like, we got to make something happen here, right? And it was during that time, and it was like, oh man, this is maybe the most truthful thing I've ever seen about business. And I think it takes a unique person to be successful in doing that, but I think it takes a unique situation too, right? You mentioned it. Hey, listen, my wife worked for me. It wasn't everything we thought it would be, and I think a lot of people think that way. What for you? What was more difficult? The fact that you had to move on from this thing that didn't work out, or the fact that you did have to have a tough conversation with your life partner that said, "Hey, maybe we need to spend less time together in the office."
It was definitely moving on from the business failure.
Sure.
Unfortunately for my wife, she kind of got forced into helping me.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, after a year doing it by myself, I said, hey, I need help answering the phone.
Yeah, I need to be able to breathe.
Coordinate my schedule and tell me where to go and when to be there because I'm burned out. But it was definitely getting over that business failure, because I went to try and work for somebody else for about 9 months, and I found out really quick that I was not a good employee.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. I quit my day job about a year ago, and I went and had a job interview. Somebody headhunted me to come back and do some IT related stuff. And I was sitting there in the interview process, and I was like, I don't even kind of want to do this. Let me ask you. We're catching up with Corwin Keller, owner and operator of Ideal Heating and Air Conditioning here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel
And plumbing now.
I was
We added plumbing, yeah.
just about to ask. And we're inside of the Pyramid Contractor Studio. This kind of seems to be a hand-in-hand thing now. It feels like if we're talking to somebody doing HVAC, there's plumbing associated. Why do those two things go so hand-in-hand, in your opinion?
Well, in the HVAC world, we do all trades. We do electrical, plumbing, and heating and air. Now,
Okay.
that doesn't mean that because I know how water runs downhill and I can run some drain lines for my HVAC equipment, I can go plumb in a house.
Sure.
But there's a lot of similarities on the structure side of the business, whether it's service, install, construction, that play hand in hand with the two, actually all three trades. We don't have electrical as of right now, but I mean it's always a viable option.
Sure.
But they seem to go hand in hand. They're really easy to mesh together.
When we talk about the Omaha area, and listen, let's call it what it is. There's a bunch of HVAC guys out there. There's a bunch of plumbers. There's a bunch of electricians. Is it as cutthroat as it would seem from the 10,000-foot view, or is there enough work out there, or the relationships are built strongly enough in the Omaha area that doesn't have to be cutthroat, and everybody can kind of give bids, breathe a little bit, and just make sure that's a good fit for their customer?
Yeah, I don't think it's cutthroat at all. At least I haven't experienced that in the last 11 years of having Ideal. But I think a lot of it is mindset. So, I mean, I really try to focus on how to make Ideal better rather than worrying about what my competition's doing.
That's a good point.
And pricing out there in the market is in a good spot. I mean, we're probably middle of the road when it comes to pricing structure. And there's the companies that are really expensive and the companies that are really cheap. And so it's, playing that game is in my opinion, is fun to play, because the competition makes us better in the end, right?
Good point.
But it also boils down to, if I'm going in there and meeting a customer, I'm really trying to get to know them and their needs, and then trying to suggest solutions for their needs rather than worrying about
Being the cheapest.
price. We'll talk price, and I always ask them what their budget is, because I can say, well, this is what you said you needed, this is what your budget is, and this is what we came up with. Can we meet somewhere in the middle?
Yeah.
It just helps the conversation go better. And I'm sure there's some guys out there I know, though, that think that it's cutthroat and we all got to fight each other.
Sure.
But there's a ton of work out there.
I got to ask about the name. Ideal Heating and Air Conditioning, and now plumbing. Where did the name come from, and why was that the right choice to represent the brand?
I really just wanted simple and something iconic. Would be, easy to remember, would stand the test of time, and sounded like it had been around
Sure.
for a long time. And so that was pretty much it.
You guys are located right down the street from our building here in the Gretna area. What has the relationship with the Gretna community been like since opening?
It's been really good. Yeah, this was a good decision. So we were down in the middle of town, about 53rd and F Street, and then made the decision 2 years ago to move out here, and it's been a great decision. Not only with the Gretna community, but Papillion and La Vista, we've been able to start building relationships with the Sarpy County Chambers and just the community around here, and I've really enjoyed it. In fact, we're leasing this building now, and we're thinking about building a building right out here behind you.
Oh, okay.
If the guy will sell us the land.
We'll tell him not to. I can't remember if the camera was on when we were talking about this, but you and I met through networking.
Yeah.
What has networking done for your business, and why have you continued to do so?
Networking for me, it keeps me engaged with other people, and so that's a big deal for me. I actually thrive and get joy from being in community with other people.
Same.
And just being around other people. And so being in a networking group not only gets me out of my office or off the job site and meeting people that I normally wouldn't meet, but it also just helps me just stay engaged realistically. And it's been tremendous for my business, whether it was BNI or Centersphere or the Chambers, or Rotary. All those clubs have been beneficial just from the relationship side. I don't think I'd ever not network.
If you could go back in time to when you started this business, what is something you know today that you didn't know then that you wish you did?
EOS.
Okay. Yeah. It's been, this is the fourth time you've referenced it since you've been, it's been that big of a game changer, huh?
Man, it's been huge. I've always believed in business coaches. I've had a business coach for probably the last 15 years.
Okay.
And I've always believed that having a coach is key. But I had the first coach that I hired for those 15 years, we were really wanting them to build us a structure that would help the company not be so reliant on me as the owner. Since
Sure.
I started it and built all the relationships, everybody's coming to me. And then if it's not me, then, it's like, oh, well, I want to do business with just Corwin.
Yeah.
Like, so how do we build that extension?
That's tough for me.
And EOS has been doing that for us. I mean, it really has, by just giving us all those tools that we need to express what I believe and how I do things to my employees so that they could do the same thing.
What's the toughest part about sales for you? Is it having somebody else do it? Is it making the relationship? I know when we think about, I don't know why that keeps happening. When we think about heating and air and plumbing, we don't necessarily think about sales, but it's obviously the backbone of what you guys do and how you're able to make the relationships with the clients. What's the most difficult part about the sale portion for you?
For me personally, it's sticking to my process that I expect my salesmen to stick to.
Sure.
But that's my personality. But it's having another person sell for me. Because I go out and treat a sale with no pressure. If I'm coming into your house, I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to sell you that system before I leave.
Because they either need it or they don't, right?
And and the other thing is I want to give you 4 options, and you may need 24 to 48 hours to decipher, because this isn't cheap.
Right.
This stuff going in is expensive, and it's a big decision. Most people only purchase an HVAC system like 1.3 times in their entire life.
Yeah.
Now some people do way more.
Sure.
It's turning that over to somebody else, because I really love sales and the relationship side of it.
And you're really good at it. Not to toot your own horn, but when we talk about that number, we talk about 1.3, and you're looking. I want to go back 11 years, and we're talking about starting this business. Does that scare you at all? Does that make you think, well, somebody eventually always needs it? When we think about the aspects around needing, and that's not all you guys do, obviously, but that's a big part of what you guys do. Is that worrisome? Is that okay? There's always a market. What was the thought process behind it?
It's not worrisome, but it does play in my mind, in the back of my mind, because that means that I have to diversify.
Sure.
I can't rely 100% on service, because it's seasonal, and I can't rely on 100% on replacements, because it's seasonal as well, and I can't rely 100% on construction, because it's economy based.
Yep.
And so I have to diversify all that, which is also why we added in the plumbing, because that's just another diversification tool that we can use to help the company stay strong and continue moving forward, and not get cornered by the economy or cornered by weather. Just really diversification, I felt, is the key.
If the most recent growth is plumbing, what's the next step? If we're talking 5 years down the road, where do we want to see Ideal Heating, air conditioning, and plumbing grow to?
Yeah, we want to be recognized more of a service company, and I think right now we're recognized more of a construction company.
Okay.
And so I would really love to grow our service department to be stronger than where it's at now. I've got 3 phenomenal techs. 2 of them have just started, and they're about 2 or 3 months into training. My veteran tech is doing a great job, and they just care about people. And so we've got the people in the right place to expand that. And so the next 5 years, I would love to see our service department grow exponentially.
We're catching up with Corwin Keller here of Ideal Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside of the Pyramid Contractor Studio. I want to talk about you for a second. You kind of mapped it out a little bit for us. Business owner, networking, father, husband. How do you balance those 4 things, wear those hats, and continue to be successful?
Balance is a great word. I wish I had balance.
Sure. Most people answer this with a really long sigh to start their answer, by the way.
That's where the EOS is coming in, right?
Sure.
Because that's helping me to be less reliant on my hours spent in the business, and more hours spent at home helping my wife, being a good father, all that stuff. And
tough for you?
It is just saying no.
Is that tough for you to kind of turn the phone off and be present? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still not good at it. I'm still
Sure.
a work in progress. Only because we go back to the warm voice on the phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tend to not want to let things go to voicemail, which is something a discipline that I have to make. But a lot of it too is just trusting that God's going to take care of my business and work it all out. Whether I spend 20 hours there or 60 hours.
Sure.
I've just noticed that when I spend 60, I don't get much more results than if I just spent 40.
Yeah, I can't help but point this out. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and every time I see you, you have a giant smile on your face. When you talked about the failure a minute ago, that all went away. Is that failure still in the back of your mind always? Do you think it's something you'll ever completely get over, or is it one of those things that it's such a driving force in your life you don't want to?
No, I feel like I've gotten over it, but yeah, it's still to the point where looking back on it, it was hard. In fact, it chewed up 7 years of this company.
Right.
Because of all the money I had to pay back because I chose to not file bankruptcy.
Good decision, bad decision, and different?
It was a great decision in my opinion because it taught me the discipline, first of all, how to manage my resources properly. But then it also taught me that, when you have obligations, you need to go take care of them. Mm-hmm. And so now it's just like, it's so easier to take care of them up front.
Right. Yeah.
Let them get behind.
Yeah. And then figure it out later.
But no, I mean, in the end, it was a hard lessons to learn. There was a lot of lessons involved in that. But it's still tough to say that the challenges of our lives bring us joy.
Absolutely.
When
the journey's
we get stronger.
The journey's the story, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like everybody hates to work out, but they love how their body looks and how it feels after they work out.
Yeah.
Somehow
Burger King doesn't have the same effect as sit-ups. Who knew? Let me ask you, when we talk about starting a business and getting into it and the journey and the failures and the success, if somebody listening to this right now is thinking about starting their own business or branching out and maybe even getting into the HVAC world, what's some piece of advice you'd give to somebody that doesn't know anything about either starting a business or being an HVAC?
Well, first of all, let's get some good professionals around you. Attorney, accountant, make sure you have those right things in place, so that you get incorporated properly, you get all your finances set up properly, and then just be ready to face challenges, to face issues every day, but don't give up, because it's going to be hard. It's hard even after 11 years that we've been in business, it's still hard.
Yeah.
And if I don't show up every day, it can go wrong.
What's the most difficult part in your opinion to be a business owner? What's the most difficult thing you have to deal with?
It's getting people to pay.
Yeah, that's something that keeps getting brought up. Is I think a lot of people go into it and assume everybody pays up front. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to point this out earlier, and I'm glad you brought that up, is you guys do offer financing for certain things. How much has that kind of changed the way you guys do business, and what are some of the benefits? And I think maybe we already just heard some of the negatives about it.
Well, financing has helped us tremendously, sell more jobs, but it also helps clients that aren't savers. So when I was in the field doing service work, I would always ask somebody when it came to that point where you had an expensive repair, are you a saver or are you a financer? Mm-hmm. Because if you're a saver, we need to start having the conversation 5 years before we think that unit's going to die, because it could take 5 years to save this kind of money to replace. But if you're a financer, let it ride till it dies. And so the other thing with financing is it allows people to use other people's money for either low cost or no cost. We've had 0% interest plans. Things lately have gotten the 0% is starting to fade away.
Gee, I wonder why.
What's that?
I said, gee, I wonder why.
Right. But I mean, the other financing options are still way below right now of what banks are offering and all that other good stuff. But yeah, it's a game changer. I mean, it really does help. And when I started the business, because of all the stuff that happened from the failed business, I was like, I'm not going to do financing because I don't think people should get into debt for this, and I'm not going to accept credit cards.
Yeah.
And it didn't take me long to realize that, first of all,
most people need it.
I don't have the right to tell somebody else how to run their finances. So
it's a good point.
Wrong of me to say that. Plus, it was hurting my business, not taking credit cards, which everybody has a debit card. That's not a credit. You're not.
Yeah.
It's coming right out of a checking account. So,
sure.
There was some lessons there I had to learn because, I wasn't completely on board, and that was just because of my PTSD from.
Yeah, it's hard to get past that stuff, man, for sure. If we talked about the move to Gretna and the location where you guys are now, is there anything that Ideal Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing does to give back to the community?
Right now, we work with Habitat for Humanity. We usually donate a house a year.
Oh, wow.
I know they don't build out here in Gretna, but then we also
that's still Omaha, though. Yeah.
Right. We also do a lot of work for the Abide Network, so we help them out on the service side at cost.
What's the Abide Network? I'm not sure
the
if
Abide Network is a community in Omaha that basically is revitalizing North Omaha.
Okay. They just bought the land down north of the airport, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing great work revitalizing North Omaha. And I've gone down there to help them. We've talked about starting training programs to get kids in the trades and a lot of stuff like that. And so that's one way we give back to the community right now. And we're trying to think of some other ways that we can give back. And
Sure.
so yeah, it's been.
We're kind of starting to hit that point where we like to shut her down. I mean, we covered a lot here. Is there anything about Ideal that we haven't talked about that people should know about the business?
I don't think so.
You can find Ideal Heating and Air, which is scrolling across the bottom of your screen now at heatingairomaha.com. Over 36 5-star reviews on Google. You can get a hold of Corwin and his team at 402-932-0649 if you're looking to get some maintenance done, or maybe you're like me and probably need to get that air conditioner replaced sooner rather than later. Buddy, I appreciate you doing this. Thanks for being here today. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Talking to a new concept in Omaha. If you like golf, you're gonna wanna hear this one. There's a new franchise coming to and currently in Omaha that's got a lot of people excited. We're gonna talk to the folks from Golf 365 tomorrow here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast at 11 a.m. Brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside of the Pyramid Contractor Studio.